So this is called the butterfly method. They also produce purple flowers, plant them into the cocoa peat or the sphagnum moss. So there you go, you can see the difference between the two right there. So just give them a really good soak. Everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rachel and you are watching Growing Green. If you're new here, hi, welcome. My name is Rachel. I run a small houseplant business here in Auckland, New Zealand, and if you're coming back for another video, welcome back. Glad you can join me for another video. So today's video, as you know down by the title, the reason you clicked on this video, this is going to be a propagation and care guide for Chain of Hearts. So if that sounds like something you are interested in, make sure to keep on watching. If you haven't already, make sure to go and check out my channel. I make videos all about houseplants. Go check out my channel and make sure to hit the subscribe button down below if you want to see more, and also a thumbs up button if you like this video because it helps out my channel a lot. So yeah, I'm just going to get straight on into the video. This is the Chain of Hearts, also known as the String of Hearts, also known as Rosary Vine, also known as Sweetheart Vine. It does have a few different names. The Chain of Hearts is a part of the Ceropegia genus, same as the Ceropegia linearis, which I also have here. So as you can see, they're pretty much the same plant. The leaves are just a little bit different. Now, believe it or not, this plant was actually discovered back in the 1800s. It's a trailing houseplant which is perfect for hanging baskets, as you can see here, and they are known to get up to anywhere between 1 meter to 4 meters in length. Its leaves are in the shape of little hearts, hence why it is called Chain of Hearts. They also produce tiny little purple flowers. I'll go and see if I find one that actually has flowers on it for you at the moment. Come on. No flowers? Really? So I don't actually have a Chain of Hearts in flower at the moment because I did just prune all of mine for a market coming up, but I will show you the ones on my string of needles because they're exactly the same. There are the flowers there. They look exactly the same on the Chain of Hearts. They're kind of like a really light purple tuber shaped flower with the dark purple fluffy petals on top. Now a lot of people also think that they look like something else, but we are not going to go there in this video. Another fun fact about the Chain of Hearts is they get tangled every 2 seconds. They also grow what's called aerial tubers, so if you see any of these on your plants, then that's perfectly fine. It means it's happy and healthy and ready to go. I don't have any to show you on my plants because none of them have them yet, but those are perfectly normal, so don't panic. That means your plant is very happy. It also comes in a variegated version like this, and as you can see, the outside is a white color, and they also kind of turn a light pinkish color if put in the right amount of sun. So there you go, you can see the difference between the two right there. When it comes to pricing these plants, I would say if you go to your local plant store, you'll probably be expecting for the regular version to pay around about $30 for a basket, maybe of this size, maybe slightly smaller, and of the variegated version, I would say for a basket about this size, maybe around the $50 mark. Bear in mind this is for New Zealand. It may also change depending on which country you're in, which state you're in. So yeah. So that was just a few fun facts about the Chain of Hearts, and now we're going to move on to care tips. The first tip that I have for you in regards to Chain of Hearts is all about watering. Now, watering for these guys is super important. Basically, the rule of thumb with these guys is to treat them like a succulent. When you water these guys, I recommend watering them all the way through, so just give them a really good soak until you see the water coming out the bottom, and that's when you know you've given them a really good water. Now, in saying this, I would definitely leave it until the soil is completely dry again, just to make sure that you're not promoting any kind of root rot. As like I said, these kind of imitate succulents. They're not succulents, but they do act exactly like them. So water them completely through and then wait until the soil is bone dry again, and then continue to do the same. Another thing to note about these guys is that they actually do store water in their tubers. Now the tubers are under the soil, and I'm not going to disturb this guy, but the tubers that I showed earlier, I'll pop the photo up again here for you. They actually do store a lot of water, so that is why it's also super important to let it dry out completely before you water them again, because they will have stored some of that water in there. If there is water in the bottom of the tray like there is now, make sure to take it off, tip it out, and don't leave them sitting in any water because it will just die on you. So as an example, taking off the bottom, it's probably going to splash everywhere. Nope, there we go. See how there is water in the bottom there from that watering? Just tip it out and leave it to drain. You can even leave this off when you water them and then pop the saucer back on a day after, just so they don't sit in water for too long. Another way to tell whether your Chain of Hearts needs watering, apart from the soil being super dry, is to just touch the leaves. If they are nice and hard and bounce back and solid, that means that they do not need any watering. But once they go sort of flat and wrinkly and are soft and you can kind of roll them in your fingers really easily, that's when it is time to water them again. Now when it comes to the Chain of Hearts, the Chain of Hearts needs very bright but indirect indirect lighting. Don't put it in direct sun because that will just burn your leaves. Make sure it's kind of opposite a window where the sun is coming in and it gets plenty of sunlight, but the actual heat from the window isn't reaching your plants. This is also how you help them grow nice and long. The more light they get, the longer they will be, and also the bigger the leaves will be too. Another tip with this is to make sure that the light also hits the top of the pot. This is where the tubes are and where the bulk majority of your leaves should be, so do make sure that a lot of the light does hit the top as well, because this is where it needs all of the energy for the plant. So another question I get asked a lot when it comes to Chain of Hearts care is, what kind of soil do you keep them in? I have two suggestions for you. The first suggestion is, like I said before, treat them just like a succulent, and any really good cactus or succulent mix will do the trick for them perfectly fine. It just needs to be extremely well draining and basically hold no moisture pretty much, or dry up really quickly. So I actually make my own mix, and this is kind of the mix that I use for basically all of my houseplants, because it's kind of got a bit of everything that works for all types of different houseplants. And this is it here. So it is just a mix of a standard potting mix just from my local Bunnings, and it also has orchid bark, it has pumice, and it also has a little bit of fern fiber in there as well. So yeah, basically just anything that is free draining. Like I said, you can go buy a pre-made cactus mix. You don't have to go all crazy like I do and mix your own. So yeah, nice and easy in terms of soil. Now when it comes to fertilizing your Chain of Hearts, I honestly, personally, don't recommend fertilizing them. Not because it burns them or anything like that, although if you do fertilize them too often it will burn the root, just because I just haven't honestly had the need to. But if you really want to fertilize your plants, just use something such as coconut. I'll pop it up here. If you're in New Zealand, I do sell it on my website. Go check it out, www.growinggreen.nz. But yeah, just use that kind of fertilizer and maybe half the strength again as to what it says on the packet or the bottle of whatever you're using, just because they really don't need a lot of feed. As long as they have that really deep watering and you let them dry out, they should be perfectly fine. Now the last tip I have for you in regards to Chain of Hearts is maintenance. Now these plants really don't require too much maintenance. There's just a few things that you should do to keep your Chain of Hearts looking beautiful. So the first thing you should do is you should twirl and pin the strands of your Chain of Hearts. Now if you've got a couple of bare patches on the top there, all you need to do is grab a longish chain and twirl it around the top and pin it down by each of the nodes, and now the node is where the leaf meets the stem, and you will have a nice lush plant on top. That's all I've done here, and it is nice and full. They will also start growing if you pin them into the soil far enough. They'll start growing roots and tubers, and you will get more strands from there, making them more lush and full. Now the other thing I recommend doing if you want lush and full Chain of Hearts is you can actually chop them, which is what I have done with this one. So I recommend once they start kind of getting maybe 2 or 3 sets of leaves over the pot, just give it a good chop like that. And obviously you can propagate the rest, which is what I'm going to talk about in just a minute, but give it a good chop and it will start to grow 2 new vines. Sometimes it's 1, but most of the times it's 2 new vines from the set of nodes above where you just chopped, and they will also actually start growing from the other nodes above it as well. So not only will you have new shoots coming out of this set of leaves, you'll have shoots coming out of these ones as well, which will make your plant more full and lush and beautiful. So this one I chopped, I would say it was probably about a month ago. As you can see there, that long stick with nothing off it was the original vine, and it has shot out a new vine from underneath there. So it's shot out a new one at the bottom there and one there as well. So that will obviously help make your plants nice and full. Alrighty, so that's all I have on my list in terms of Chain of Hearts facts and information and care tips, and now we're going to move on to propagation. So there are 2 main methods when it comes to propagating your Chain of Hearts. The first one is called the water method, and the second one is the soil or the cocoa coir or the cocoa peat or the sphagnum moss method, all of which I'm going to be showing you today. So the first one we're going to talk about is the water method propagation, the easiest of them all. Honestly, it's perfect for beginners. So for the water method, you're of course going to need a jar of water. And what you're going to do is you're going to take your cuttings. So as you can see, I have my cutting here that I'm going to take. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to chop it underneath this node here. And now I have my Chain of Hearts cutting. So what you're going to do is you're going to put it into this jar of water. Now before you do that, I highly recommend removing the leaves off of one of the nodes or 2 of the nodes before you pop it in the glass of water, because these are just going to rot in the water and make it all nasty. So now we have a nice clean node there without any leaves or anything else on it, and you're just going to pop that straight into the glass of water. And it's as simple as that. There you have your Chain of Hearts cutting. Now this should take about a month to show any kind of decent roots. As you can see there, the node is underwater and you're all good to go. Now with your water cutting, I highly recommend changing the water at least once a week or just when it gets really grotty. That just helps keep the water fresh for the roots to grow in. If you leave them in for too long, they can sometimes get a little bit moldy and maybe a little bit green, a little bit funky. Now the next propagation method is a little bit more, I wouldn't say it's advanced, but it's a little bit more difficult, and it's definitely my favorite favorite way of propagating chain of hearts, because not only do you get more cuttings per cutting, if that makes any sense, I also find that it works better and they grow a lot quicker. So this is called the butterfly method. So as you can see on this tray, I have butterflied a whole bunch of cuttings, and I will show you how to do that in just a second. And I have placed them on top of a tray of cocoa coir. So with the butterfly method, of course, you're going to start off making butterflies. So I have my cutting here, and as you can see, it has 3 sets of leaves on it there, and what you're going to need to do is to chop up every single set of leaves. So by that I mean you're going to chop just before and just after every set of leaves, which leaves you the node, which is where the leaves meet the stem, and that is what is going to grow roots for you. So I'm going to do that now. So I'm going to chop about here, and I'm going to chop just underneath it there. So now you have your single node chain of hearts butterfly. So now we have 3 butterfly cuttings. Of course, you can do as many of these as you want. Now the substrate that I like to use for this is called cocoa coir or cocoa peat, but you can also pop them straight into soil, well draining soil, or you can use sphagnum moss from this as well. It works really good, but I personally like to use cocoa coir. As you can see, it is super light and fluffy. It's extremely well draining, and I have actually added some pumice into there for a little bit of extra drainage. So I'm going to pop it into my container. I always like to overfill my cocoa coir containers because they obviously shrink when it gets wet. Alright, so we have our pot full of cocoa coir ready to go. Now the first thing I do is I make a few of these tie downs. Now these ties I normally put in the middle of each butterfly to hold it into the soil, because obviously they don't have any way of holding themselves in until they get roots. Now what you're going to do when you plant them into the cocoa peat or the sphagnum moss or whatever you're using is you're going to get your little tie, you're going to bend it in half, or as close to half as you can get, like so, and then you're going to pop it in between the 2 leaves of the node cutting. So I'll do it and I will show you. So there is my node cutting, and you're going to put the tie in the middle there. And then all you're going to do is you're going to pop it onto the soil and make sure that the node is well covered, and push that down into the soil there. Now I also like to sprinkle a little bit on top. Don't worry about covering the leaves, they'll be just fine. All you need to make sure is that that node is covered in the soil. And as you can see there, all you can see are the 2 little leaves sticking out, and that is perfect. Now I'm just going to do that with the rest of them. All 3 cuttings are now in the cocoa peat, and all you've got to do is water them in very well, and they're good to go. Another suggestion is to keep them in a nice warm spot, even a sunny windowsill, but not a direct sunlight windowsill, just so you can get up a lot of that humidity in there and help the roots to grow, and also just keep it wet. Keep it as wet as you possibly can. So this tray of butterflies has been in here for, oh here we go, it has been in here since October, and it is now January, so that's 3 months. They've been in here probably way longer than they've needed to be, but now I'm going to do that, and I can actually show you what they look like when I take them out. Now it's always a little bit of a mess when we take them out, because the roots are probably going to be everywhere, and so obviously as a little growth, it is just growing absolutely everywhere, and they're vines and they get tangled, so I'm going to pop them out very carefully one by one. So I normally just use honestly a label to prick them out, but you can use anything you want. So let's start here, and there is the first one. As you can see, it has a nice long stem on it already, and it has a cute little root system under the bottom there. So yeah, I'm going to pop that aside, and then we'll pop them up. Ooh, some of these have a really nice root system. Whee! There's 2 of them there. Another thing I wanted to say really quickly about using cocoa peat as a substrate is it is totally reusable. I've literally just taken them all out, flattened it out, and it's good to go all over again. So as you can see, I now have a whole bunch of little butterfly cuttings that are all growing very, very nicely. And now all I do is just pop them up. The next stage is to get them from the little potted up cuttings that you saw in the last clips to this. Now these have been sitting here for about, I would say, close to a month now, and as you can see they are nice and long. And now I'm going to pop these up into hanging pots. So what you're going to do is you're going to unpot the cutting, and then you're just going to place it into the container and pot up the root ball at the end, just like you did the cuttings, except now it's just a bigger cutting. And then fill up the rest of the hanging basket. So once it's nice and full with soil, what you're going to do to make them nice and full is you're going to wrap them around the top and pin them down. So as you can see with this one here, I'm just going to lay it around the top, just like so. and then I'm going to pin it down as I go. And then I just pin it down next to every second node. So see, there's a node here. I'm going to pin down that node. This just helps the nodes make contact with the soil, and where it makes contact with the soil, it will also grow roots, and where it grows roots, it will also grow more stems. So there you go, it was as simple as that. Now obviously this one looks a little bit scrawny because it is still quite small and freshly potted up, but eventually it will look like this one here. So all you gotta do is keep twirling it and pinning it and twirling it and pinning it, and then once it's as full as you'd like it on the top, let it hang and you have your chain of hearts. Look at those roots, by the way. They're amazing. So there you go. That is what one with 2 cuttings looks like. So that is all for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something and got something out of this video. If there's anything else I didn't cover that you want me to answer a question for you, just pop them in the comment section down below and I will try and respond as soon as I possibly can. If you did enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. It helps out my channel a lot. And also hit the subscribe button if you would like to see more videos like this. And as always, I'm open to video suggestions, so pop them in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you in my next video. Bye! And care guide for string of hearts. That's wrong. Chain of hearts. It's going to be about their propagation. The one thing about filming the bloody chain of hearts, they always get tangled before you even can start.
What?
Huh?
What?
I'm talking to myself. Ugh. When it comes to starting filming, when you water these guys, there. If they're nice and firm and bouncy, there was a freaking cockroach on my hand. Shit. Bounce back. They don't need. Plane. Not filming. Dang. Plane. Hurry up and go away. Dang. Plane. That's what you get when you live by an airport. Hearts needs plenty of bright indirect lighting. Oh my god, my neighbor's watching me. We made eye contact. That's really awkward. Nelly! Nelly! Comes to chain of hearts is, now the last tip I had for you when, so I have my, that's not my cutting. Where's my cutting? There's my cutting. Now the substrate that I use, like